285s, which are about a 33 on this truck, and check for tire clearance. I'm about to order tires for this thing. I want to go a little bigger, so I'm going to put those on here, put it on the flex ramps, and look at clearance to make sure I'm not going to get in any trouble. There's a lot of debate online about what is the factory offset on the GX460. All you gotta do is pull the wheel off and know how to read. So if you look inside the wheel, most wheels say things like 18 by 7.5. That is the diameter and the width is measured from where the tire sits. And then there's usually another marking. Oh, there you go. 25 plus 25 is the offset. So that means this wheel, you know, is sucked in 25 millimeters. Now let's see if the wheel off of the GX470 has some similar markings. Oh, there it is, 17 by 7.5. Toyota, even though it's on a Lexus. And does this have a number that tells us the offset? It might not. You usually do though. Oh, there it is, 25. 17 by 7.5, 1/2 JJ 25. So the GX460 and the GX470 have the same size wheel. One's just a lot uglier. And by same size, I mean one's a 17, one's an 18, but same width and same offset. So I'd like to go slightly wider on the offset. I'm probably going to go with some stock 4Runner wheels. Give you about 1/2 inch more offset on each side, so a 1 inch wider track width. Combined with a slightly wider tire, it'll make my truck look about like these 285s with the 275 and a bit more offset. I want the tires in the wheel wells for sound reasons and not throwing rocks on the side of the truck. But I also want it a little bit wider so that when I'm up against an obstacle, my body doesn't overhang the tire too much. That's about what I want right there, and I think I'll achieve that with a 275 wide on like a 2019 4Runner SR5 wheel. Those wheels are also cheap. I don't believe in spending money on wheels because there's a lot better things to spend money on, like lockers and bumpers and rock sliders and skid plates. But this thing did well. I drove it on the highway today with these old KO2s. Yes, they're a little rough and noisy, a little chopped, not perfectly balanced. Gas mileage went down about 1.5 mpg compared to the stock size tires. So I'm swapping them back now, and I'm going to order me some tires and rims for this thing. All right, but the 285s on there reflects down this little hill, looking for signs of rubbing. Let's go ahead and put the phone back here. That's how I like to do it. Clearance with the control arm is good. Around the back of the tire is a little tight, but it's not rubbing yet. I don't see any rubbing anywhere. Now what I am interested in is it's going to rub here when I turn the wheel a little straighter, so I'll have to check that in a second. Let's go check the rear that's flexed up and see how that looks. I think it'll be fine. This all cleared really well on my 470, but I just wanted to check it on here before I, spent $1,800 on tires. Got plenty of space up here. Let's see how it looks back there. Everything looks pretty good. Are we on the bump stop is the next question. Check that out. Can't quite see it. Not on the bump stop yet. Okay. And that bump stop isn't touching either, but it's getting close. Alrighty. So, rear's got plenty of room. I could actually, if I wanted to, I could get some wider offset wheels and I wouldn't have any issues in the rear. Because I'm not going to run a 285, I'm going to run a little skinnier. And this has plenty of room all in here. So I don't think the rear is going to be a concern at all with a 265, 275 and rubbing. I could probably do another 1/2 inch of offset and get away with it just fine. So I straightened the wheel out a little bit and it's not actually rubbing there. And I could easily move that plastic back another 1/2 inch, so that's a good sign. Let's see how close it is to the bump stop. Not on the bump stop yet, but it's pretty close. So I think I'll be fine in the front. Might have to do some really minor modifications of that plastic liner, but other than that, good to go. Tire does go up another inch from that. So I think the max I really want to run is a true 33, but I don't want to go quite 285 wide. The problem is most of the tires I want to run for this truck are E-rated, and I'd like to run a C-rated or a P-rated tire, keep it light, help fuel economy, and it'll ride smoother and the tires will wear better because I'm not going to have that much weight in it usually. But we'll see what I end up with. But I think I could run these tires pretty easily, which is no surprise because they fit the GX470, which is the same truck, but you always want to do your due diligence. Now I'm going to romp around the yard, hit some bumps, and see if I can hear any rubbing. So here's a good way to test for rubbing. Go into a real bumpy field and go to full lock and do a pretty tight, quick circle. Let the truck bounce around and see if you get any rubbing with the suspension deflecting at full lock. That's usually where you'll notice it. And go to half lock and do the same thing. And this thing turns pretty sharp. There's full lock, basically cutting a donut. Guys, so one of the main reasons that a 4Runner is better off-road than a GX460 is because of the bumper clearance. The 4Runner is a lot better approach and departure angles because the bumpers hang down really far. So we already took care of the front bumper by doing the Iron Man, which involved, you know, cutting this piece of plastic into this shape right here. And now we need to do the rear because it looked really stupid with a bunch of clearance in the front. I unbolted the floorboards because they were already getting bent from hitting stuff. So those are off, and now I needed to make the back kind of match. So I just took this grinder wheel and I made that happen. A few tips to make that work. Before you start cutting, remove these plastic pieces from the factory. They sit up in here like this. This sits in here. It's just a bunch of 10mm bolts that removes. And when you drop it down a little bit, you'll have to pull a wire off of that little post right there. That wire is for your parking sensors. That was snapped on that post. Then zip tie your wires away from the bumper. So when you start making your cut, you don't cut all these harnesses, right? That's the important thing. So after you get that done, go ahead and put a piece of tape and you can cut along the bottom of it so you have a nice mark. What I did was I made one side where I wanted it with the tape. I went right under the parking sensors for now. Once I get my aftermarket bumper from True North Fab, I'm gonna have to trim it some more. But I wanted to trim it enough now to where it doesn't get caught on stuff and rip off the whole back of the bumper and mess up the back of my truck. So I had to trim it some. My bumpers aren't gonna be here for a month or two. I'm not waiting a month or two to go off-road, obviously. So just mark that, go around and cut everything, pull your wheels off so you can go in here and cut this. So this fender liner is one piece with the mud flap, so you just have to cut through it, unfortunately. I'm gonna add a bolt and nut right here. That's how it gets cut. It gets kind of melted through to kind of reinforce that piece. But pretty easy. One pro tip, one thing I did on this that I didn't do on the front bumper that helped, I actually took a pair of pliers and ripped a chunk out of my grinder. So it had one kind of messed up spot that makes it cut through plastic like butter. I know it's kind of dangerous because it could explode in my face, someone's gonna say, but whatever, it went through there very seamlessly. But now you can see that the way I cut it, you can see that this back hitch bracket is more exposed, spare tire is more exposed, but you can get to your trailer light connections and your recovery point a lot easier. So that's really nice. I'm gonna take these wires and zip tie them up just to clear them out of the way better. But a lot more visibility on that ugly ass exhaust pipe, which is the same as the GX470. But yeah, I think it's gonna help a lot, really help the departure angle, because if it gets caught on something or your mud flap gets against your wheel, you could rip all this off and do some serious damage. So might as well go ahead and bite the bullet and cut the stuff now. While I'm down here, you can see the new shocks. You can look at the sway bar angles. That's full droop. Still looks pretty good with these shocks I put on here that are about 1.5 inches longer, so that's good. Everything looks good. Nothing is hitting. You can see that this sway bar is getting pretty close to the track bar here, but there's clearance all the way around it. So I think that was a good mod with these longer Dobinson shocks.